Before it became a time machine, the DeLorean was a failure, an orphaned dream of stainless steel and scandal. In 1981, John DeLorean promised the world a revolution on four wheels, a car that would outshine Ferrari and redefine the American sports car. Instead, he delivered a machine so underpowered it could barely outrun a family sedan. Within 2 years, his company collapsed, and the man himself was arrested in an FBI sting that shocked the entire industry. And yet, fate had other plans. Just when the DeLorean seemed destined for the scrapyard, Hollywood resurrected it. In Back to the Future, it became more than a car. It became the very definition of imagination. But how did this mechanical failure turn into one of the most beloved movie icons of all time? Why did NASA engineers help design its doors? Why was one version plated entirely in gold? And what secret forced even the film crew to fake its speed? Tonight, we open the classified file of a legend. This is the untold story behind the stainless steel ghost that cheated time itself. These are 20 weird facts about the DeLorean DMC-12. Truth so strange even Doc Brown would raise an eyebrow. Number 20. The $12,000 dream that lied to everyone. It all began with a number, $12,000. That was the promise printed in early DeLorean brochures, the dream price for a futuristic American sports car that anyone could afford. A revolution for the people. John DeLorean called it. The name DMC-12 itself came from that number, a symbol of affordability and ambition combined. But when the first production models finally rolled off the line in 1981, reality hit hard. The car that was supposed to cost $12,000 now sold for over $25,000, more expensive than a brand new Corvette or Porsche 924. The dream had doubled in price before it even began. What happened? The factory in Northern Ireland bled money. Stainless steel panels were costly. The Lotus-designed chassis was delicate. Every futuristic detail had a hidden price tag, but John couldn't change the name. DMC-25 didn't sound as catchy, and so the badge stayed, a silent reminder of a promise never kept. Every DeLorean that left the factory carried that lie on its nose, a number that represented both genius and delusion, the $12,000 dream that fooled the world. Number 19. The 88 mph illusion. The most famous speed in movie history, 88 miles per hour, was a lie. In the real world, the DeLorean couldn't even show that number. The car's speedometer stopped at 85, thanks to a U.S. federal regulation from the early 1980s that limited all speedometers to that number in the hope of discouraging speeding. It didn't work, but it did create a hilarious problem for Hollywood. When Back to the Future began filming, the production team realized that Doc Brown's magic number didn't exist on the dashboard. Their solution was brilliant and absurd. They built a custom gauge just for the movie. That fake dial showing 88 mph became one of the most recognized instruments in cinema. In reality, the DeLorean struggled to even reach 85 millimeters without groaning. Yet on screen, it broke the laws of physics and time itself. Ironically, that missing number turned into a legend, and replica builders now fight to find or print an 88 mm gauge just to make fiction look real again. Number 18. When NASA helped build the doors. Only a man like John DeLorean would think of calling aerospace engineers to design car doors. The gull-wing doors weren't just stylish, they were absurdly complex. Grumman Aerospace, the same company that helped build the Apollo lunar module, was hired to make sure those doors didn't crush anyone's skull. They created cryogenically treated torsion bars, metal rods frozen to -300 degrees Fahrenheit, to make them strong and perfectly balanced. Each bar was a precision instrument worthy of a spacecraft. The result, doors that could lift smoothly and stay open for decades without sagging. But such perfection came at a price. Those torsion bars were expensive, difficult to replace, and nearly impossible to adjust. Mechanics hated them. Still, they worked so well that most DeLoreans today, 40 years later, still open like they did on day one. A car that failed on the road, but nailed aerospace standards. It was the only car in history that could break down in traffic, yet look ready for takeoff. Number 17. The toll window joke. Every car needs a window you can roll down, unless it's a DeLorean. Because of the gull-wing doors, there was nowhere for a full window to go. The engineers realized this only after the design was locked. Their solution? Cut the glass in half. That's how the infamous toll window was born. a small rectangular flap that dropped just 4 inches, barely wide enough to fit your hand through. It wasn't powered either. You had to unlatch it and slide it manually, like a medieval castle drawbridge in miniature. Imagine paying a toll or ordering at a drive-thru in that car. You'd have to open the entire door, lifting it toward the sky while everyone stared. Practical? Not at all. Iconic? Absolutely. The toll window became the perfect metaphor for the DeLorean itself. Stunning to look at, terrible to live with. Beauty and frustration welded into one stainless steel frame. Number 16. The Parking Lot Paradox. The DeLorean's gull-wing doors weren't just for show, they were supposed to make parking easier. The design required only 11 inches of clearance to open fully, far less than an ordinary car door. In theory, you could squeeze into the tightest spot and still step out like a movie star. But that clever advantage came with one gigantic catch. You needed over 6 feet of overhead space. In a low-ceiling garage or underground lot, those same doors could jam against concrete. Owners quickly learned to park far away from everyone else, not for protection, but for survival. John DeLorean proudly advertised the door design as engineering for urban life. In reality, it was closer to engineering for science fiction. The car looked like it belonged in a spaceship hangar, not a parking structure. Ironically, what was meant to make city driving easier ended up making daily life harder. The DeLorean didn't just stand out, it stood tall, literally. Number 15. The Stainless Steel Illusion. The DeLorean's brushed stainless steel skin was its greatest illusion. Beneath the gleaming panels lay a fiberglass shell and a Lotus-designed steel backbone chassis. The steel didn't make the car stronger, it just made it heavier and harder to build. John DeLorean wanted the body panels to be structural, but engineers warned him it would triple the cost and destroy performance. So he compromised. Decorative steel sheets bolted on top of fiberglass. The result looked revolutionary, but functioned like expensive wallpaper. There were upsides, though. Because the panels weren't painted, scratches could be polished away with a simple Scotch-Brite pad. You could literally repair your car with kitchen tools. The downside, fingerprints showed up instantly, and owners joked that they spent more time cleaning than driving. In the end, the stainless finish was a metaphor for the car itself, dazzling on the surface, fragile underneath. It was beauty by illusion, engineering by denial, and failure disguised as shine. Number 14. The nose-high error. If you've ever seen a DeLorean parked, you might notice something odd. It looks like it's climbing a hill, even when it's on level ground. That wasn't intentional design. It was a mistake. The front of the car sat higher than the rear because of one simple oversight: equal rate springs. Lotus engineers originally designed the suspension with different spring rates for the front and back, knowing the rear carried the heavy V6 engine. But during production, someone decided to simplify manufacturing by using identical springs on both ends. The result was a car that looked permanently startled. Its nose pointed skyward. The higher front end didn't just look strange, it ruined aerodynamics and stability. Air flowed underneath, creating a lift at speed. Owners eventually began lowering the front suspension themselves to restore balance. Ironically, that blunder became part of the DeLorean's identity. Models, posters, even movie replicas all kept the nose-high stance. What started as a factory error ended up as the car's most recognizable pose. Number 13. The Weak Heart. 130 horsepower of disappointment. Underneath its futuristic shell, the DeLorean hid a rather ordinary heart, a 2.85-liter V6 engine built by Peugeot, Renault, and Volvo. On paper, it sounded decent. In reality, it produced a disappointing 130 horsepower in U.S. trim, barely enough to push the heavy stainless car past 120 miles per hour downhill. It wasn't always meant to be this way. The engine was originally planned as a V8, but the 1970s oil crisis forced a downsizing. Then came American emissions laws, which choked the power even further with catalytic converters and smog pumps. The result was an engine that sounded rough and felt sluggish. Car journalists were brutal. Car and driver called it agricultural, a polite way of saying it felt like farm machinery. Even John DeLorean himself was reportedly disappointed, admitting privately that it looks faster than it is. For a car that looked like it could break the sound barrier, the DeLorean could barely outrun a family sedan. It was a spaceship with the engine of a tractor. Number 12. The turbo that never was. For a brief moment, salvation seemed possible. In 1981, a company called Legend Industries began developing a twin-turbo version of the DeLorean. Two small turbochargers, one for each bank of cylinders, turned the sluggish PRV engine into a real performer, 0 to 60 in under 6 seconds. Suddenly, the DeLorean could have competed with Corvettes and Porsches. It wasn't a fantasy. Legend built several working prototypes, complete with new fuel systems, exhaust manifolds, and a cockpit-mounted boost gauge. Test drivers were impressed. For once, the car's looks matched its speed. Dealers were ready to sell it as an optional performance package. Then came October 1982. DeLorean Motor Company collapsed overnight. Legend's tooling, parts, and dreams were all rendered worthless. Only a handful of turbo cars survived, mostly as test mules or collector pieces. If the turbo model had launched, history might have been rewritten. Instead, it remained another what if, in a story already filled with missed opportunities. The car that could have saved the brand never left the lab. Number 11. The Unbalanced Beast. The DeLorean looked like a balanced sculpture of symmetry, but underneath, it was anything but. With the engine mounted far behind the rear axle, nearly 2/3 of the car's weight sat on its tail. To tame that imbalance, engineers fitted smaller 14-inch wheels in front and larger 15-inch wheels in the rear. It helped a little, but not enough. The result was a car that felt nervous in corners. The front tires, narrower and lighter, gave up grip quickly. Push too hard, and the rear would swing around without warning. Drivers described it as beautifully dangerous, the kind of car that rewarded precision but punished arrogance. Even simple things like tire rotation became impossible, since front and rear sizes didn't match. Owners joked that the DeLorean was allergic to maintenance. Modern restorers often upgrade to larger, evenly sized wheels and better tires, but purists insist on keeping the original setup because for them, that quirky imbalance isn't a flaw. It's the DeLorean's attitude frozen in stainless steel. Number 10. The Wandering Antenna Mystery. In its short production life, the DeLorean couldn't even decide where to put its antenna. Early models had it embedded invisibly inside the windshield, a futuristic idea that looked sleek but failed miserably. The stainless steel body acted like a Faraday cage, blocking most radio signals. Drivers got static instead of music, so the engineers moved it. The next version featured a manual mast on the front fender. It worked, but it looked outdated, and you had to step out of the car to extend it. For a supposed car of the future, it felt like a trip back to the 1950s. By the final production run, DeLorean tried again, this time with a powered antenna hidden inside the rear quarter panel. It extended automatically when you turned on the radio. The catch? 3 different antenna setups across 3 years of production. Parts were never standardized, and replacing the radio became a nightmare. The car that looked like it came from space couldn't even guarantee a clear FM signal on Earth. Number 9. The Hood That Kept Changing. No two DeLoreans were quite the same when it came to the hood. Over just 3 years of production, the company released 3 distinct designs. The first had twin grooves down the center and a small fuel filler flap. Practical, simple, and arguably the cleanest look. But DeLorean couldn't leave well enough alone. The next version kept the grooves but deleted the flap, forcing owners to open the entire hood just to refuel. Then came the final smooth hood, with no grooves, no flap, just the DMC badge. It looked elegant, but it was a symptom of chaos inside the factory. Why so many changes? Constant supply issues, shifting suppliers, and last-minute cost cuts. DeLorean Motor Company was improvising, trying to stay alive. Collectors now argue endlessly about which hood is best. The rarest? The grooved one without the fuel flap. Made for only a few months. For a company that barely built 9,000 cars, DeLorean still managed to make a simple hood into a 3-act drama. Number 8. The Gold-Plated Disaster. In 1981, American Express offered its elite cardholders the ultimate status symbol, a DeLorean plated entirely in 24-karat gold. The promotion targeted gold card members only, because of course it did. For $85,000, customers could buy a car that looked like King Midas had designed it. But reality struck fast. The gold plating added significant weight, dulled performance, and screamed, "Steal me." Out of the 100 cars planned, only 2 were ever sold through the official offer. A third was cobbled together later from leftover parts, like a gilded Frankenstein. The idea was supposed to celebrate excess, but it ended up symbolizing failure. Most people who could afford a gold DeLorean didn't want one, and those who wanted one couldn't afford it. Today, the surviving 3 cars are museum pieces, one sitting in the National Automobile Museum in Reno. A golden joke turned into priceless art. What was once a marketing disaster is now worth over $150,000, proof that even mistakes can shine given enough time. Number 7. The right-hand drive enigma. The DeLorean was never meant for right-hand drive markets, but that didn't stop enthusiasts from trying. A handful of cars were professionally converted in the UK by Wooler Hodek under factory authorization. Pedals, steering, even the dashboard were flipped and rebuilt from scratch. Only a few dozen were ever made. Then there were the mysterious Axi cars, 3 rumored factory-built right-hand drive units created under unclear circumstances. Some say they were prototypes for export. Others claim they were favors for powerful investors. No one knows for sure. Converting a DeLorean wasn't easy. The asymmetric dashboard and rear-mounted engine meant every control had to be redesigned. Cheap conversions often ended in disaster. Misaligned pedals, steering columns at odd angles, cables stretched to breaking. Today, genuine right-hand drive DeLoreans are holy grails for collectors, selling for 6 figures if documented. They're proof of just how far devotion can go, turning engineering impossibility into collectible legend. Number 6. When Johnny Carson broke down. In 1981, late-night legend Johnny Carson proudly took delivery of his brand-new DeLorean. It was sleek, futuristic, and, unfortunately, already doomed. A few days later, on a sunny afternoon in Los Angeles, the car sputtered to a stop on the side of the road. The problem? The alternator couldn't keep up with the electrical load. Headlights, air conditioning, and radio drained the battery faster than it could recharge. For most people, it would have been an inconvenience. For Carson, it became national news. The world's most famous talk show host stranded in a car of the future that couldn't power its own lights. Public relations disaster. DeLorean engineers rushed to fix the issue, upgrading the alternator in later models. But the damage was done. The story spread faster than any advertisement the company could buy. Carson never bought another DeLorean. Ironically, his breakdown became symbolic of the entire brand, a bright idea that couldn't generate enough power to keep itself alive. Number 5. The movie fleet of time machines. When Back to the Future went into production, the filmmakers didn't use one DeLorean. They used several, each built for a specific purpose. The A car was the hero vehicle, fully detailed inside and out for close-up shots. The B car was modified for stunts, built to take abuse during jumps and high-speed chases. Then came the strangest of all, the off-road DeLorean. Mounted on a Volkswagen chassis with raised suspension and off-road tires, it was used for desert scenes in Part 3. Beneath its stainless shell was a rugged 4WD heart. At least one car didn't survive the trilogy. In the final film's train sequence, a real DeLorean was destroyed on camera, flattened by a locomotive for dramatic effect. In 1990, it was cheaper to destroy a genuine car than build a miniature. Of all the screen-used DeLoreans, only the A car truly lives on. Painstakingly restored, it now rests at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles, preserved exactly as it appeared on screen. The others? Scattered, rebuilt, or lost to time, just like the movie's own timeline. Number 4. Mr. Fusion, the coffee grinder that saved the future. When audiences first saw Mr. Fusion at the end of Back to the Future, it looked like the future of clean energy, an instant symbol of the 21st century. In reality, it was a repurposed Krups coffee grinder. The prop team simply painted it silver, glued on a few pipes and wires, and bolted it to the back of the car. The label was barely covered. You can still spot the Krups logo in close-up shots. The choice wasn't lazy, it was brilliant. The filmmakers wanted futuristic tech that still felt familiar, something that hinted at domestic convenience in a sci-fi world. A coffee maker turned nuclear reactor was the perfect metaphor. That single prop became one of cinema's most beloved inside jokes. Fans now hunt down the exact Krups model, which sells for hundreds of dollars online. What once brewed morning espresso now powers the imagination of generations. The future, it turns out, runs on caffeine and a bit of movie magic. Number 3. The Mustang that never made it. Few fans know how close the DeLorean came to losing its starring role. Before Back to the Future began filming, Ford offered Universal Studios a lucrative deal: use a Mustang instead of a DeLorean, and they'd supply cars and cash for the entire production. Producer Bob Gale didn't hesitate. He fired back with a single line that became Hollywood legend: "Doc Brown doesn't drive a fucking Mustang." The deal died instantly. Gale later explained that the time machine needed to look alien, something that felt out of place in 1985. A DeLorean with its stainless body and gull-wing doors looked like it had already time-traveled. A Mustang, no matter how powerful, was too ordinary. That decision changed cinematic history. The DeLorean became the face of imagination, while the Mustang remained just another car. Ford may have lost a sponsorship, but the world gained a legend. One line of defiance created one of film's most unforgettable icons. Number 2. The Porsche Sound Swap. If you've ever heard the DeLorean roar in Back to the Future, brace yourself for disappointment. It's not a DeLorean you're hearing. The real PRV V6 sounded flat and uneven, more lawnmower than sports car, so the film's sound designers made a bold move. They replaced it entirely with the growl of a Porsche 928 V8. They recorded the Porsche under various loads and speeds, syncing each layer to the DeLorean's movements on screen. The result was cinematic perfection. Every acceleration, every gear change, every burst of energy came from Stuttgart, not Belfast. The deception worked too well. Generations grew up believing the DeLorean sounded powerful, exotic, alive. New owners were often shocked to discover that their real cars purred like refrigerators. Still, the choice was genius. In Hollywood, truth bends to emotion. The DeLorean became larger than life because of that lie. It didn't just travel through time, it borrowed the voice of another to echo through eternity. Number 1. The museum that keeps time frozen. The hero car, the original A car from Back to the Future, was nearly lost to time. After years of touring theme parks and sitting outdoors on display, it fell into ruin. The stainless body was pitted, the wires corroded, the famous flux capacitor dead and dark. It looked like a relic from a forgotten age. Then, in 2012, a team of passionate fans and restoration experts launched a project to bring it back. Using archival photos, film frames, and even surviving props, they rebuilt every circuit, hose, and bolt exactly as it appeared on screen. The process took years and cost more than most modern cars. Today, the restored DeLorean sits behind glass at the Peterson Automotive Museum in Los Angeles. Every scratch, every wire, every smudge has been recreated with obsessive precision. People travel across the world just to stand before it. It's more than a movie car now. It's a monument to imagination, proof that dreams, no matter how improbable, can outlive their creators. The DeLorean may have failed in the real world, but in the realm of dreams, it still runs at 88 miles per hour. Before we close this journey through time, here's a thought. The DeLorean never truly failed. It simply found a different road. What began as a doomed dream of stainless steel and corporate ambition became a myth that refuses to die. John DeLorean wanted to change the auto industry. Instead, he changed pop culture. His car became a time machine, his failure became folklore, and his name, once a headline of scandal, now rides alongside the word icon. The DeLorean DMC-12 represents everything beautiful and broken about human invention. It's proof that vision alone can't conquer physics or finance, but it can conquer time. 40 years after its collapse, people still rebuild, restore, and reimagine it. No one remembers the sales numbers. Everyone remembers the doors, the shine, the sound that never existed. So maybe that's the real paradox of this car. It had to die to live forever. The DeLorean was never about horsepower or handling. It was about hope. The idea that something built with courage, even if flawed, could touch eternity. And before we go, if you've made it this far through history, hit that subscribe button and tell us, which of these weird facts surprised you the most? Because in the world of cars and cinema, legends don't fade, they accelerate. And just like the DeLorean, some stories will always hit 88 miles per hour.